Alright, in this video we'll take a look at the final outcome of my DIY project, a one-of-a-kind 150 watt McIntosh MI-75 dual monoblock setup. A few months ago I set out on a project to create faceplates for my MI-75 amps and rack mount them. After a lot of DIY and some professional help, I finally have the amps of my dream. Without any further ado, here's the amp. I'm calling it the McIntosh MI-275. It has two MI-75 monoblocks, which are the industrial versions of the MC275s. If you want to know more about these industrial amps, you can check out the first video I made on the series. The second video documents how I went about creating these faceplates as close to original as possible, and as you can see, these have turned out quite well. The third video documents my thought process around rack mounting and how I eventually settled on this particular setup. I decided to rack mount these two monoblocks on top of each other rather than have them into two separate smaller racks. And I went with a much taller rack than required for a couple of reasons that I already talked about in the rack mounting video, but let me walk you through this rack setup now that it's all put together. I wanted to make it convenient by having a taller rack that could accommodate additional components like the surge protector power strip here that can not only power these amps but also power additional components like a preamplifier, DAC, streamer, turntable, etc. Although McIntosh has built these robust industrial amps to be rack mounted right on top of each other without the need of any additional space in between, I wanted to take the additional precaution with heat management and make the setup more breathable, so I've configured this additional empty space here in between the amps, and the rack also has an open back, all of which allows for excellent heat management, which I have confirmed with thermal imaging. I was wondering what to do with this empty space here, which I briefly talked about in the rack mounting video. I could have just kept it blank or added a sticker or something, but I decided to go all out and added an illuminated McIntosh logo here. I thought of going with different styles, but eventually settled with a simple McIntosh logo. Alright, enough talking. Let me now turn it on and demo this amp. I have my tannoy GRFs hooked up to these monoblocks. Top amp is powering the right speaker, the bottom is powering the left speaker. I have my Queen MX110Z preamplifier going into these monoblocks. You can see the immaculate condition of this unit that has just come out of a consulate. And I have the Veeam streamer along with the RME ADI2 DAC going into the preamp. Now let me turn this on. I love having this surge protector, as I mentioned. I have all the components, the amps, the preamp, the DAC, the streamer, hooked up into the surge protector. I have the power switches on the amps, preamp, and all the components in the on position by default, so this switch here essentially becomes my one-touch operation for the system. Let me flip this switch and you can see the whole system come to life. And here we go. There is our illuminated McIntosh logo. There's the two red pilot lamps on the amps. The preamp is on. The DAC and the streamers are on as well. We'll wait for this blinking light to turn solid, indicating the streamer is ready. Until then, this also gives the tubes a minute to warm up. I currently have a couple of pairs of the GEC KT88s on these amps, and I've got the absolute holy grail Telefunken ECC803S in this V15 position on the preamp, which essentially acts as a V1 position for line stage on this preamp. And the combination of these tubes is just phenomenal. And with that, the system is ready to go, and we are ready to rock and roll. I've lived with this amp for a few weeks now, and I pretty much turn it on every night for a nightly listening session as I'm doing a sound A/B test with various GEC KT88 tubes, and it's been an absolute pleasure. It's amazing. It's really working great so far. Let me put a song on for you. Let me put the volume up a little bit and hit play. Down. When I showed this amp to a couple of my friends, they loved the setup and the sound so much they were asking me if I would ever sell this amp or make another one like it, because I do have another pair. So that was a compliment coming from the friends, you know, that that all of my effort was worthwhile. Speaking of effort, someone asked me what was the most challenging part of this project. So let me tell you from the easiest to the most involved or the challenging bits. First of all, as I've mentioned in my first video, there was no electrical tinkering required. These amps were restored and brought up to spec by one of the best techs in Southern California. I don't have to touch any electrical components. So everything I did as part of this DIY project was purely cosmetic. Having said that, I'll go from the easiest part to the hardest. The easiest in terms of effort was the rack itself. Once I decided on the rack size and the configuration I had envisioned, I looked around and saw many different options in terms of racks and eventually settled on the 16U studio rack from Soundtown. It checked all the boxes for me. It was the right size, it's made of wood, I like this lighter color so I went with that. It's got an open back which really helps with heat management. It's got handles on the sides which also helps. It comes with optional wheels that makes moving this rack around a breeze. And of course I made sure it can also support the weight of these two monsters here, and in addition it can accommodate an extra piece of equipment on top, like the preamplifier or turntable or anything like that. So all of that just worked out really well for my requirements, and putting it together was a breeze as well. It came well packaged and it's quality material, so I was able to put it together in no time. The next challenging task was the faceplates. You can watch the video on faceplates to see what was really involved. I really had to put in some time and effort in measuring and remeasuring and getting the alignment right on these cutouts here. That took a lot of time and effort, and there was also effort in getting the lettering and the fonts and the spacing and all of that right. The biggest challenge was actually learning and figuring out the Adobe Illustrator software, which was new to me. I had to learn that to accomplish what was required for the faceplates. And also finding the vendors, the fabricators, and the engravers to actually get the job done once I was able to create the spec files. So overall, quite a bit of effort went into getting the faceplates done and done right, but that was far less challenging than the next bit here, which is this illuminated Mac logo. This was by far the most consuming and involving in terms of efforts involved, since I built it pretty much from scratch. The logo itself was not that challenging. Most of the challenge came with illuminating and getting the lighting right, where it doesn't look too tacky. The light here is configurable with this remote, so it can be turned off or on. It's dimmable, and of course it can change colors as well. So yeah, I'm really glad the way this has turned out, but would I do this again if I did another build? Most likely not. I mean, I do have that additional pair, and I'm thinking of what I could do with it and maybe offer it up for sale, but I don't think I could top this rack setup here, so we'll see. So yeah, there you have it. I'm really happy with the way this whole setup has turned out. It certainly grabs attention, it's a conversation starter, and it sounds phenomenal. And the best part for me is knowing that there's not one like it out there. As it is, these McIntosh industrial amps are quite rare to start with, so this setup here really makes it a one-of-a-kind McIntosh tube amplifier setup in the world, aesthetically speaking, and I'm very happy with it, and I'm calling it the McIntosh MI-275. Thank you for watching.